Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 14 of the Chasing the Racing podcast. Welcome to 2020. I am Kyle Young here on Monday, January 6th, 2020, to talk about racing with you guys. The new year, the start of a new feeling, the start of a new decade, the start of a new chapter in the racing world. I don't know about any of you, but I know I am already extremely excited for 2020. I think that there is a lot of awesome things to come this upcoming year. Just so much to be positive about. So much to be positive about and to be happy with moving forward with the racing world. We had a lot of live racing this past weekend, so we actually have some racing action to talk to you guys about this week. We've had some over the last month, but nothing quite like what we're going to talk about tonight. Lots of racing to talk about tonight, and it's just the start of the norm for the rest of the near future. Things are getting ready to start up, practicing and testing for other types of racing events and series. Things like this past weekend where you have the World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series season opener kicking the year off. So it's a good time to be a race fan. It's a good time to be a race fan, a race driver, a team member, anything like that. It's just a good time for it. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, checking this out. I hope all of you had a good week. I hope you had a great weekend, found something to enjoy. I hope you had a great holiday, great new year. Welcome again to 2020, the very first show for us here this year. I'm looking forward to what the future has in store. So let's do it. Let's dive in here. We've got so many things to talk about tonight, and I'm very happy about it. With this being the show that it is, going to be jumping into my race chasing over this past week. I finally got back to the racetrack this past week. My first 3 races of the new year are in the books. Very happy about that. It was great to get back to the racetrack after spending a little over a month away, and 3 very unique and very awesome racing events to kick it off, and I absolutely had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about it here tonight. So, my race chasing this past week started off with a Hangover 2.0 at Utica Rome Speedway in Vernon, New York. The Hangover 2.0 was, I should say, now that it's in the past, Utica Rome's version of the Hangover 150 that Ransomville Speedway in Ransomville, New York used to do for a handful of years. 100-lap 4- and 6-cylinder enduro race. They had 75 cars pre-register for it, and I want to say that's about how many cars that they ended up having at the track. They didn't give us an exact number, I don't believe, but it was somewhere around the 70, 75 number as it was for the pre-registrations. So that was very good. Track conditions were a little bit rough, which for an enduro, it doesn't really matter too much what the track conditions are, but the track conditions definitely had an impact on this race. Here in New York lately, we haven't really had a ton of snow as of late, so it wasn't really a snow enduro like you would think it would be. Earlier last week, we did get some rain, so that kind of helped create some sloppy conditions for the racetrack, and it showed by dramatically reducing the number of cars running at the end of the race. When I say dramatically, I say from 70 to 75 down to 2. There were literally 2 cars racing at the end of the race of that enduro. last Wednesday. I have never seen, in all of the enduros that I've been to throughout my entire life, and I've been to a lot, I have never seen an enduro come down to just 2 cars before. So that was a first. That was odd. That was a little strange. But that's what ended up happening. The track was just so thick and sloppy and muddy that a lot of people had problems dealing with it. Whether it be crashing out, getting stuck, or just getting the mud clogged up in the front end of the car and overheating and blowing the motor. But only 2 cars ended up finishing out of the 70 to 75 that showed up. And in all reality, they didn't even run the entirety of the 100 because the first place car that was leading the race ended up multiple laps ahead of the only other car that was running. So by the time he completed more laps than was left for the guy behind to make up to win it. They ended up just throwing the checker at that point, which, if you get technical about it, the way that they scored it wasn't technically correct, but whatever. So in the end, out of the 70-75 car range that ended up competing in the event, only 2 finished, and it was sportsman competitor Chris Mackey who ended up getting the victory in the Hangover 2.0 on New Year's Day. He had himself an interesting race. Early on in the race, he ended up getting turned around into the front stretch wall head-on. Did some damage to the car. It ripped off the front bumper cover. He ended up ripping off the rear bumper cover later on in the race, and was not able to. I'm sorry, I'm multitasking right now. Took some cosmetic damage. Later on in the race, he ended up getting stuck in turn 1. He had a right front tire go down, and with how thick the track was and with some of the obstacles of non-running cars in the way, he got stuck, fought to get out, finally got out, fell. I think he was like 12 laps down by the time he was in second, and the leader had stopped so he could be able to get the laps back and take the lead. But changed the tire, got himself unstuck, went back out onto the track, and ended up pulling out the victory. Got the win. He actually ended up, it all ended up timing out perfectly because he ran out of gas coming across the start-finish line. So the car sputtered and died coming across the line and came to a stop just a handful of feet after he had passed it. So I guess it's a good thing that the track ended up deciding to do what they did with the scoring, because had they done anything differently, Chris Mackey would not have made it to the finish. So the only other driver that was driving at the end of the event was Jonathan Holmes. Jonathan Holmes was running a Richie Evans-like paint scheme on a minivan. Chris Mackey was driving a pink Chevrolet Cavalier, full roll cage, all the goodies. Took that to victory lane. Jonathan Holmes in the minivan was second, and then the remainder of the top 5 were Dustin Behrman, Brian Hill, and Austin Susie. Those 3 DNF'd. They were the last few cars to DNF and ended up finishing in the top 5 based off of where they were running per their DNF. So it was a very sloppy, muddy mess. We'll switch this over. Ooh, whoops, that's the wrong thing. We'll switch this over here to kind of give you an idea to see how muddy and disgusting the entire racetrack was. You basically lose the pink on Chris's car. Hardly anything showing of the pink, and it's just completely recovered to sloppy, thick mud, and you can see all the mud down on the racetrack, how bad it is there as well. So it was a fun time. The weather wasn't all that bad. Obviously, it was cold. Wasn't too cold. There were some snowflakes flying around during the race, but nothing too severe to really make you uncomfortable or do anything in a negative light. It was a good way to spend New Year's Day. Great way to kick off my race chasing for the year, and a very enjoyable experience for sure. So that was race number 1 this past week. Race number 2, my first out-of-state racing trip for the year. Me and my friend Bobby, we jumped into my vehicle and headed south to Allentown, Pennsylvania, more specifically the PPL Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania, for the Ironton Telephone Allentown Indoor Race. That was the start of the indoor auto racing championship season. The first 2 races happening this weekend in Allentown, Pennsylvania at the PPL Center. For those of you unfamiliar with the Indoor Auto Racing Championship, they compete with TQ midgets, slingshots, and champ carts. Friday's show was TQ midgets and the champ carts, and then Saturday's show was TQ midgets and slingshots. I was only in attendance for Friday's show. I did not go on Saturday. I went to a different race on Saturday, which we will talk about here shortly. But for Friday's show, the first time that I have been to the Allentown Indoor Race since 2018. I did not go last year because I was competing in the enduro race that I went to on Saturday last year. So that prevented me from going there in 2019. Made the return this past Saturday, and it was your typical indoor race. Lots of slam banging, lots of crashes, lots of wild flips. Just kind of how the indoor racing thing goes. Nothing really super fantastic, but it was a race to go to, so we went and enjoyed what we could. Pretty wild start right off the bat for the TQ feature. They ran 40 laps. They started, I'm pretty sure, yes, they started 24 cars, which probably is way too many cars for them to be starting for an indoor event. My friend Bobby has been more adamant about it than I have, but after watching this past weekend's race, to me, I think it's fairly clear that you probably need to drop the number of cars that you start for those things. Because after the first portion of the race, there's a lot of slam bang, a lot of crashing, a lot of holdups. And then eventually they ended up getting into a bit of a green flag run where they ran like 10, 11, 12 laps green flag. So these guys prove that you can race competitively inside these tiny little arenas. Just doing it with 24 cars probably isn't the right way to do it. So the chaos started quick and early in the TQ feature. Coming out of turn 4 on the first lap, Scott Kruger pushed himself way wide, hit the outside wall. He put himself up onto his driver's side, slid along the front stretch, and then Ryan Flores, who is actually a tire changer for Ryan Blaney in the NASCAR Cup Series. I mentioned him last month in talking about the Turkey Derby at Wall Stadium Speedway because he ran a factory stock and a TQ midget there. Flores ended up crashing as well. It went upside down, caused a big problem. So that was the first delay. A few laps later, there was a spin in turn 4. Tyler Thompson hit one of the sets of infield tires, spun himself around, and then Timmy Salamito came bowling over the rear end of another car and destroyed the outside wall, upside down, rear end first into the Jersey barrier wall. It looked and sounded a lot worse than what it probably was. They flipped the car back over. Timmy got out, no issues, no problems. Very scary wreck to see at first, but everything was good. Had a few more cautions. There was some good green flag racing up towards the front of the field. Sean Nye started on the pole. They redrew the top 9 cars, I believe. Started on the pole, led a good portion of the race, and during that green flag run that they had there, Eric Rudolph was able to slice his way up to second. He was rolling in on Sean Nye, as the laps clicked off, but then they had a caution and bunched everybody up, and eventually Eric Rudolph was able to take the lead away from Sean Nye, and Rudolph did what he is so accustomed to doing with these indoor races. He is the defending series champion, won it last year, and he's won the championship 4 times in indoor auto racing championship history. Kicked off his title defense with a solid performance on Friday night and picked up the win. Pole sitter Sean Nye was able to finish in second, Matt Janisch third, Andy Jankowiak fourth, John Reed in fifth, Tim Buckwalter sixth, Ryan Bartlett seventh, Briggs Danner eighth, Matt Roselli ninth, and Michael Barnes rounding out the top 10. Again, they started 24 cars. It was a 40-lap race. Probably too many to start, but that's what we've been dealing with, and until a change is made, that is what we will continue to deal with. As mentioned, on Friday night, the Champ Karts also ran. They ended up running first. Their race was also filled with a lot of cautions and mayhem, but it wasn't as bad as what the TQs were. They did have some pretty good racing up in the top 5, with guys swapping positions and being able to race side by side with each other. In the end, Tyler Brown picked up the victory. He had to make some passes, work his way through the field a bit to take it over. Jeremy Tuttle finished in second. Mike Perry was third. TJ Reed was fourth. Dan Marsden rounded out the top 5. Todd Crenshaw was 6th. Ron Midford Jr. 7th. Ryan Kendall 8th. Seth Whitney 9th. And Cale Ross rounding out the top 10. They started 20 karts. They did send drivers home. They had, I think they had 2 B mains. So they consolidated their field down to 20 for their feature event. As I said, I did not go to the race on Saturday, but since we're on the topic of the indoor race, I do at least want to highlight Saturday's racing action, seeing that it was a form of live racing to talk about this week. Night number 2, Saturday, the January 4th, another night of TQ midget racing, and on Saturday they ran the Slingshots instead of the Champ Karts. TQs ran for another 40-lap feature. Was able to watch the highlight video of the TQ feature, just so I kind of had an idea of what to talk about. You had your indoor slam banging. Ryan Flores and Andy Jankowiak kind of had a bit of a rough battle towards the front of the field. Flores was kind of beating his rear end off. Finally got around Andy J. Andy didn't really take too kindly to it. Eventually got into the back of Ryan Flores. It actually cut the left rear tire of Flores down. Didn't wreck Ryan, did not upset him too much other than the fact that it cut the left rear down. Stayed out in front. Race officials didn't have any issues keeping him out front. They had a short little stint at the end to finish it off, and despite having the flat left rear, have I been saying left front? I'm sorry. It was flat left rear. It was a flat left rear tire if I did mess that up. I just realized that I may have. But in the end, Ryan Flores, with a flat left rear tire, was able to hang on and picked up the victory. He won the Saturday race at Allentown last year, and he doubles up doing it again this year. Steve Kemery was second. Jeremy Haudricourt, I'm going to go with. I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce that. Finished in third. Anthony Payne was fourth. Ryan Bartlett fifth. Briggs Danner sixth. Matt Janisch seventh. Earl Paulus 8th, Michael Barnes 9th, and Tim Buckwalter rounding out the top 10. They again started 24 cars. And as just mentioned, Ryan Flores picking up the victory. Night number 2. Eric Rudolph was 16th on Saturday after winning on Friday. He had some issues throughout that feature and struggled. I'll mention it since I mentioned it in the first race. Scott Kruger had another rough start and another early race crashed, made it a back-to-back last place, 24th place run for the Allentown indoor race, so not at all how he was hoping to start his indoor season. In the Slingshots, they also ran for 40 laps. They started 20 cars. Didn't see any highlights video on this at all, so just going through the straight through the results. It was Dylan Hotch, I will go with. H-O-C-H, Dylan Hotch, that picked up the victory. Scott Neary was second, Brett Bieber third, Michael Lepicki was fourth, Aiden Savanda was in fifth, Tyler Alsh sixth, Cody Klein seventh, Loudon Raymer in eighth, Parker Golden in ninth, and Matt Mertz rounding out the top 10 finishers for the Slingshot main event. That is your full rundown of the 2 opening rounds of the Indoor Auto Racing Championship that happened at the PPL Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Rounds 3 and 4. Actually, well, that's I guess technically how you would say it, but I don't think they only run one feature for Atlantic City. But rounds 3 and 4 of the Indoor Auto Racing Championship will take place on Friday, January 31st and Saturday, February 1st at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, Georgia. The Gamblers Classic, as they like to call it. We'll take a quick rundown of the points as well, seeing that they are available, or at least they should be. I'd seen an article about them being available, so hopefully it connects to the standings page. And that is correct. Look at that. So with the TQs, it's a little more. It's easier to mention since they ran 2 races, or well, it's worth mentioning since they ran 2 races. The Slingshots and the Champ Carts, their points are just the way that they lined up, or the way that they finished. So in the TQs, it's Matt Janish that has the points lead. He has 150 points. It's a 10-point lead over second place points driver Ryan Bartlett. Eric Rudolph is third with 133 points. Briggs Danner fourth with 130. Andy Jankowiak rounds out the top 5 with 126. Jeremy Hodricourt is 6th with 123. Sean Nye 7th with 121. Tim Buckwalter 8th with 120. Ryan Flores 9th with 119. And Anthony Payne rounds out the top 10 with 118. They ended up having 44 TQ midgets show up for both shows. This past weekend, 35 Slingshots and 34 Champ Carts on hand at the PPL Center this past weekend, so a great turnout for those guys, to say the least. On Saturday, I wrapped up my week of race chasing, my 3rd event of the year, with the 2nd annual Slush Crush 100 at the Adirondack International Speedway in New Bremen, New York. It was, as I just said, the 2nd time that the event has happened. Last year was the 1st. I actually competed in that event, but I was not able to prepare myself to race this year, so I went as a spectator. Fantastic show through and through for the most part. Trying to get this to pull up the right way. Oh, there we go. Okay. Fantastic show through and through. Last year we had roughly 55 cars, I think it was, for this event. And this past Saturday, they more than doubled that. They had it was like 50-55, so they right around doubled it, with 108 cars taking the green flag in Saturday's Slush Crush 100. It was phenomenal. I'll switch it over. I did post this photo. This is coming straight from our Facebook group. Kind of give you an idea of the field post-race and what the track had looked like. You can see all throughout the pits and in the infield, all of the cars back here is where they were parking cars on the outside of the racetrack because they ran out of room inside. Fantastic turnout. And they had way more than 2 cars finish, unlike Utica Rome. Just an incredible turnout of cars. It was an awesome race for the most part. Lots of chaos, lots of slam banging, some pretty big gnarly crashes. One of which there were 2 instances that actually sent people to the hospital. There was a crash over here. Well, actually, I don't think it had anything to do with this crash that happened over here. But there was a pretty big pileup over here in Turn 4. A car had slid off, and they have foam blocks that line up against this outside wall. Spun into that, and then they got hit. think it was somebody else, though, that ended up having a pretty significant laceration on their leg, so they took them to the hospital for that. The more significant one that was extremely disgusting was over on this part of the racetrack. So it's kind of unfocused, but if you can see right here where I'm highlighting the cursor, this little dark line is like a line of tires, and just behind that in this little area of snow is where they have a lot of safety and plow vehicles resting in case they are needed. You can also see that right here is the outside wall in turn 2, and there's a bit of a gap in this area. So while they were green flag racing, there was a safety truck that was sitting behind this wall in turn 2 and wanted to get from the wall over here to this area where the other safety trucks were at over here. He made the ridiculously unintelligent decision to drive parallel to the racetrack in reverse down this part of the track, which is not actually on the racetrack. It is not the racing surface, but as you can sort of kind of tell and see, there is no barrier on this part of the track connecting where he was at from the racers. He was just racing, or he was driving off of the racing surface, but still within reach of the race cars that were out there. Timed it at a terrible time. There was a car that had gotten himself out of control, slid off the track, and slid directly into the rear end of that safety truck. I didn't really see it. Well, I didn't see the truck get off the ground, but I had a friend that had a better view of that incident and said that the rear end of that plow truck actually did get up off of the ground when it was hit. And unfortunately, the driver that smashed into the back of the truck ended up breaking his leg in the crash. So that was the second incident where we had to ambulance somebody out of the facility into a hospital. That incident actually ended up cutting the first half of the race short. And they did their halfway break, cut it short by 20 laps, and had to wait for another ambulance to come in so that way there was someone on site to complete the race. An instance like that is absolutely 110 million% inexcusable. I realize, and I'm fully, obviously we all know that racing is a dangerous sport. Enduro racing is probably more dangerous than most forms of racing because in a lot of enduro races, this one included, roll cage, roll bars, driver hoops, none of that was required. You could race without a roll cage, which means that you could race with just a stock seatbelt and a stock seat. But an instance like that where somebody gets hurt because they slid off and ran into a plow truck that was moving during green flag racing conditions in an area of the track that puts them at risk is completely inexcusable. I would have a totally different feeling on this if the car had slid off into that area and the truck was just parked and sitting there. I actually saw that happen last year at Evans Mills Raceway Park in Evans Mills, New York. They have their safety trucks sit right at the edge of the wall on the backstretch just before they enter turn 3, and there was a crash there, and the safety truck got hit. Still don't think that it's a smart place to put that, and I had thought of that going there in prior events to that one that happened at. But at least in that situation, there wasn't a vehicle moving. In this one, there was a moving safety vehicle during green flag conditions on a part of the facility that isn't separated, the racing surface and his surface, that was not separated by some type of barrier, some type of wall, something like that. What makes matters even worse, in my mind, is that I was paying attention to that area within the final few laps of the race. There were 2 more trucks that drove down from over here that drove over to the wall, so they were going forward at that point. 2 more trucks that drove down that path, and an ambulance that did the same thing within the last 10 laps while green flag conditions were happening. So it's bad enough that it had happened and we broke somebody's leg because of it, but they somehow allowed that to happen again as more vehicles continued using that area. I don't understand. I just, that's an extremely terrible situation, should have absolutely never happened, and the fact that there was no communication to whoever was over there, and it happened again, ridiculous. From what one of my friends had said, I didn't really catch it. Apparently there was another car that started going off in that direction as one of those trucks was driving by. So we nearly had a race car, non-race car collision again. That happened. It just, situations like that just make me extremely frustrated. I feel awful for the guy with a broken leg. I hope that something is done between now and the next event that they run in March to prevent this from happening, or they just don't bring those people back as plow truck / safety truck vehicle drivers. There's no excuse for that. You should never, ever be driving close to a racing surface where you can be reached by race cars during green flag racing. You would think that's common sense, but I guess not. I'll also add in that there was, over in this area of the racetrack, there was a flagger. They have flaggers stationed around other places in case they need to stop it, so that way they have multiple red flags thrown around the track. They had a safety worker here who was throwing the red flag, and nobody else was throwing a flag. So the race was not going to be red flagged, and he's standing on the edge of the racetrack throwing the red flag. This happened all before any of those incidents had happened, so seeing what those incidents produced shows you what the risk of doing that is. Who's to say that wouldn't have happened, that a car wouldn't have slid off at that point and ran this human over, and who knows what would have happened at that point, instead of running in the back of a truck. So on that aspect, things need to change dramatically before their next race. But as a whole, everything else was fantastic. The car count was good. The racing was good. The excitement was good. Once again, they ended up delaying the start of the race, which they've done every single time that they run an enduro. I should have expected it. They delayed it by like an hour. Had I known that, I would have slept more. But either way, it was still a really good event. Whether they need to change their start times to make it better for people, or they just need to actually run the show on the time that they're saying that they're going to run it, is to be determined. But I had a blast on Saturday. The track, even though you can see that there's a lot of snow on the track very quickly evaporated all of the snow, and it basically became a wet pavement race. There was still some slush and stuff up at the top of the track. There was slush up against the wall. You can't really see with the umbrellas, but they put a boat like right around here, and then a lot of the slush and snow that's up at the top here stuck around. There's a PT Cruiser that was using all that snow and was hardcore drifting around the entire track. It was hilariously entertaining. He would get the car sideways and then just mat the thing all the way around the track until it straightened its way back out. It was awesome to watch. On the front stretch is where they had a lot of thicker clumps of snow that they ended up flattening out. But that caused some chaos. It was thicker snow to get through, so guys plowing through that, kind of slowing down, spinning out, hitting each other. There were cars that broke down on the front stretch during the first half of the race, so there was a patch kind of right in the middle of the racetrack here that ended up staying as slush, and then the bottom lanes and the top lanes kind of cleared out. They ended up clearing the cars out of there during the halfway break and left that open for people to use. They ended up putting a tire right smack dab in the beginning of it right here, but people were still sliding through there and stuff. This car down here was a raffle car that they raffled off to people that you could enter, $5 a ticket. Whoever won the raffle got to jump in and run the race. I did enter. I bought 2 tickets and I did not win. I'm very heartbroken by that. But I'm glad that they at least offer them to the grandstands, because in the past, I've been to multiple enduro races over the last year and change that this facility has had. They've said that they're going to raffle off the car in the grandstand side, and they never did. So I'm glad that they actually did that this time around, and I could enter from the grandstands. Free general admission, and from what you can tell from the photos here, they had a great turnout. When I first showed up, I was a little concerned about the turnout because the grandstands were all that packed, but people started coming in, and it was another really good crowd. They are going to be running another one in March. They have not announced the date specifically for that race in March, but I'm going to do my best personally to compete in that race, because after the Hangover 2.0 at Utica Rome, it is with my fantastically great pleasure to share with all of you that your boy bought himself an Enduro car. So I'm extremely excited. It's a Mitsubishi Galant. I've never even heard of those before. This car ran, again, Utica Rome this past Wednesday. Only ran about 8 or 9 laps before the driver pulled off because, as you can see, it still has the regular windshield in it, and he couldn't see without the mud on it. Car runs, it drives, it's great. Does need a few things there are a few things I'd like to do with it. I did clean it, so it doesn't look like this anymore. But I have an Enduro car again. I'm extremely excited about it. And whenever they announce that race in March at Adirondack International Speedway, that is when I am going to be making my 2020 racing debut. So if you're in the area, stay tuned. And of course, we'll be talking about it here because it's my show. I can talk about whatever I want to. And if I don't want to be biased towards myself, I absolutely will. So that was my weekend of race chasing. Fun way to start off the new year. Very looking forward to seeing how things progress in the future with my race chasing and my racing. I don't have anything going on this upcoming week, but I'm hoping that next weekend I'll be going out to New Hampshire for the Winter Blast 100 event that Riverside Speedway in Groveton, New Hampshire will be hosting. That facility used to be Speedway 51. It's an annual enduro race that they do. I went there last year. Ton of cars. They kind of messed up and it became like a track blocking situation that was a little bit messy and not all that great, but hopefully they will improve on that stuff and make it even better for this year. So now that we've gotten my race chasing adventure out of the way, we do have some other racing to talk about that happened this past week, and we'll start it off with the season opener for the World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series. They kicked off their season for the first time in 2020 at the Vado Speedway Park in Vado, New Mexico. That is a new facility. World of Outlaws Late Models usually don't start until the Dirt Car Nationals in February at Volusia, but changed it up for 2020, and we had some racing this past weekend for those guys. So we will run down the 3 days of racing that happened out there. Watch the highlight videos. Very good racing. That track produces a lot of awesome racing. You can use any lane top to bottom on that place. Lots of side-by-side, slide jobs, 3 wides. Solid weekend of racing at Vado Speedway Park. So on night number 1, they ran for 30 laps. It was a $5,000 to win event. And it was Chris Smokey Madden picking up the first win of the year. Brandon Shepard finished in second. Ricky Weiss finished in third. Scott Bloomquist was fourth. Mike Marler rounding out the top 5. Rick Eckert 6th. Brian Shirley 7th. Kay Dillard 8th. Ashton Winger 9th. And Dennis Erb Jr. rounding out the top 10. On night number 1, they had 27 cars start the feature event. The hard charger of that event was Dennis Erb Jr. He moved up 9 spots from 19th to finish in 10th. And let's see, they split qualifying up into 2 different flights. So there were, 21 in that one. Let's say 20. So I had 42 cars show up for or compete in the first night. They ran 4 heat races, 2 last chance showdowns, and then, of course, the 30-lap feature event. All right, so that was your first event. Here, whoops. That was the first race on Friday. Gotta go back here. On Saturday at the Vado Speedway Park, they competed for another 30 laps and another $5,000 to win. That one was one. So actually, what was kind of really cool, nice way to start off the World of Outlaws season for 2020. 2 first-time winners in the second 2 events. Saturday night's show. produced the Manitoba Missile going to victory lane for the very first time. The 2018 World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series Rookie of the Year, Ricky Weiss, went to victory lane for the very first time. He started in third place and picked up the $5,000 win. Defending series champion Brendan Shepard, another second place finish. Chris Madden, night one winner, finished in third. Darrell Lanigan was fourth. Mike Marlar, another top five with a fifth place run. Cade Dillard advanced his 8th place to a 6th place on Saturday. Billy Moyer was in 7th. Stormy Scott 8th. Chase Younghands 9th, and Earl Pearson rounded out. Earl Pearson Jr. Rounded out the top 10 finishers there. Another 27 car started the main, and it was Chase Younghands up 7 spots from 18th. Up 7 spots from the 16th place starting spot to 9th for the Hard Charger. Yesterday was the third and final event at Vado Speedway Park, and it was also won by a first-time World of Outlaws feature winner. This was the big one, 75 laps, $15,000 to win this time around. Awesome racing in this feature. Brendan Shepard led a good portion of it. They had a restart with like 9 laps to go, 9 or 10 laps to go, and Cade Dillard got the best of him, snuck underneath him, had a great drive, actually had a nose out in front at the start-finish line off the restart, and then a nice slider in turn 1 and 2, grabbed the lead from Shepard, and did not look back. Cade Dillard won last night's Battle at the Border at Vado Speedway Park, his very first career World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series feature win. Picked up the $15,000 win over Brendan Shepard. 3 second-place finishes this weekend. Extremely consistent, but obviously he was hoping to get a win at some point. Did not do that. Darrell Lanigan was 3rd, Scott Bloomquist 4th, Ricky Weiss finished in 5th following his win. Dennis Erb Jr. Was in 6th, Rick Eckert 7th, Chris Madden 8th, Mike Marlar 9th, and Bobby Pierce rounded out the top 10. Bobby Pierce got that top 10 in dramatic fashion. He was involved in a crash early on in that event with Billy Moyer Jr., Ashton Winger, and a couple other cars, and actually got himself up on the passenger side of the car, spun it around, slapped the wall, and kind of rode up the wall a little bit, and ended up planting it on the right side door. Clearly he was able to continue, got the thing going again, and ended up with a top 10 finish, so good for him there. 26 cars competed, and Ricky Weiss up 16 spots from 21st to 5th. Picked up the Hard Charger Award in that feature. So the first 2 events of the 2020, first 3 events of the 2020 World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series is in the books. The Battle at the Border at the Vado Speedway Park. Taking a look at the point standings afterwards, they are updated all nice and neat. With the 3 second-place finishes, it is no surprise that Brendan Shepard is on top of the point standings. He has a 4-point advantage over Ricky Weiss. Chris Madden is 3rd, 10 points behind the lead. Cade Dillard 4th, 16 points behind. Darrell Lanigan rounds out the top 5. Actually tied for 5th is Darrell Lanigan and Mike Marlar. The 2 of them are tied, 26 points behind. Scott Bloomquist is 7th, 38 points back. Dennis Erb Jr. 8th, 44 points back. Rick Eckert 9th, 50 points back. And Stormy Scott rounding out the top 10 in points, 58 points back after the first 3 races. 42 cars. Well, there's some of the ties are actually considered in there. But either way, little over 40 cars that showed up for the first race of the World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series season. Great turnout, great racing at a great facility, so awesome to see them have such success with their season opener. Their next events will be at the Dirt Car Nationals Wednesday, February 12th through Saturday, February 15th. They will race 4 times there at Volusia Speedway Park in De Leon Springs, Florida. So you'll have to wait until then if you're a World of Outlaws Morton Buildings Late Model Series fan, but it will be a very good event, as the Dirt Car Nationals always is. Saturday night also saw the season opener for Monster Energy Supercross for the 2020 season. Very happy to have that back. Weekly racing from here on out with Supercross action, at least for the next 4 months or so. So that's fantastic. I was mainly watching the Patriots game while that was going on, but it ended early enough for me to catch the feature events, the mains for the Supercross races. Obviously, with Supercross, you run 250s and 450s. A1 Anaheim 1, Angel Stadium of Anaheim in Anaheim, California, the first event of the year. 250 race was pretty good. Some battling early on up front, but really for the most part, although I guess I can't really say that. You had a lot of good battling going on up front with Austin Forkner and Justin Cooper. Forkner got the whole shot off the start. Made a pretty big mistake while he was out front leading. He got himself caught up in some tough blocks on the edge of the racetrack, sacrificed that lead to Justin Cooper, and then he ended up cutting the course to get himself back going, which he did not get penalized for until yesterday, but he did get penalized for it. He originally finished in third after the incident, was docked to 2 positions and got dropped back down to 5th. After that incident had happened, Justin Cooper led the remaining of the race, was able to put a comfortable gap between him and defending series champion Dylan Ferrandis, and picked up the first main event win of the season. So Justin Cooper, first 250 win of the year. Dylan Ferrandis was second. Christian Craig, after the penalty to Austin Forkner, third. Michael Moseman moved up to 4th, and then Austin Forkner in 5th. Cameron McAdoo 6th. Brendan Hart ranked 7th. Derek Drake 8th. Jeff Lawrence 9th. And Alex Martin rounding out the top 10 for your 250 main event results. In the 450s, they had themselves a pretty good race as well. Justin Barcia jumped out to an early race lead. Also kind of ended up making a mistake very similar to what Austin Forkner made. Just kind of got himself a little wide. Did not end up going down on the bike like Forkner did, but he did lose a lot of momentum and gave up the race lead at one point. There we go. And did give up the race lead. He was able to fight his way back to the front. Got back by Adam Cianciarulo, who has been incredibly impressive his first few times out on a 450. He won his first main event during the Monster Energy Cup in October, and has just shown incredible performance thus far. He's going to be one to watch throughout the year. It should be very fun to watch how he does. But he did give up the lead to Barcia, and Barcia was able to hang on and picked up the win. Second year in a row that he won A1 to kick off the year. So Justin Barcia, the Greenville, Florida native, taking home the trophy. Adam Cianciarulo finished in second. Cooper Webb was third. Blake Baggett 4th. Jason Anderson rounding out the top 5. Ken Roxon finished in 6th. Eli Tomac was 7th. Justin Brayton 8th. Malcolm Stewart 9th. And Vince Frazee, your top 10 finishers. Also worth noting, Chad Reed was able to qualify for the A main. I keep saying feature because just my dirt racing background. But by qualifying for that, he qualified for his 250th career main event start, which is a series record, so congratulations to Chad Reed. Not a very impressive performance by him. He finished 18th out of 22 riders, but still starting off his final season by starting his 250th race, so that is pretty impressive to say the least. Next week, this upcoming Saturday, they will be racing in St. Louis at the Dome at America Center, right? The Dome at America Center, yes, St. Louis, Missouri, on January 11th. So we will absolutely be tuning into that on Saturday night and chit-chatting about that coming up on next week's show. So that's a lot of the racing talk that we are going to do for the night. Lots of news topics to cover, which we will start to do so right now. Again, it's just so nice to be able to talk about live racing instead of nothing but news. So it's a good time of the year to get ready to start that stuff up. There was testing this past weekend, the Roar Before the 24 testing. Not like there's really anything to mention about that. It's just testing, but Rolex 24 testing did happen this past weekend, so that is extremely cool. That race is only, 3 weekends away now, is the Rolex 24. So, super cool, and we'll be seeing that event happen before we know it. So here we go. Jumping into the news side of the program. Unfortunately, we're going to be starting things off with unfortunate news, but it does need to be mentioned. It was announced today that Bob Varsha has shared with us that he is currently battling cancer, which is never good. But this is an article that was posted by Racer.com. We'll read through it here quickly to give you guys some more information about his situation. Motor racing broadcaster Bob Varsha starts the new year with a daunting fight to wage after being diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of prostate cancer that will require intensive chemotherapy over the coming months. With an immediate need to step away from racing and focus on defeating cancer, the veteran of ESPN, NBC, Speed, and Fox Sports has been unable to work and is not expected to be in a position to travel or resume his career until June at the earliest. The New Yorker has been a mainstay in the sport for decades as the American voice of Formula One, IMSA, IndyCar, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, FIA World Endurance Championship, Formula E, and more since the 1980s. Long regarded as one of the finest talents in the industry, Varsha has groomed legions of co-hosts, color analysts, and pit lane reporters who've gone on the greater success as a result of learning at his side. Excuse me. A GoFundMe page has been established to help support Varsha and his family while undergoing treatment, and then it gives the link for that GoFundMe page. So yeah, just very, very unfortunate news to hear about Bob Varsha. Of course, wishing him the absolute best. Fighting this battle, hopefully he will be able to win it and return to work and return to the motorsports world that he and so many of us love. It's a tough thing to start out your year like that, but we will continue to wish the best for Bob and hope that we'll be able to see him at a racetrack very soon. Bob was unfortunately not the only one to have health-related issues over this past week. ARCA Menard Series legend Bobby Gerhart suffered a heart attack and will not be able to race at Daytona to start the ARCA Menard season on February 8th. This is coming from Speedsport.com. Bobby Gerhart won't be in the field when the ARCA Menard Series begins the season at Daytona International Speedway on February 8th. Gerhart, an 8-time winner of the ARCA Opener at Daytona, recently suffered a heart attack. As a result, the 61-year-old Gerhart won't be racing at Daytona after making 32 straight starts at the track. Gerhart told ARCARacing.com, quote, "I guess you could say I got the greatest Christmas gift of all. I was at home and wasn't feeling well and drove myself to the doctor. When I got there, they said I had a pretty serious heart attack. It could have been a matter of 5 minutes or 5 hours, but had I waited, it's pretty likely it would not have ended up as well as it did. I still have a very long road to go, but I have been given a second chance here, and for that I am very lucky and very grateful," unquote. During Gerhart's lengthy racing career, which also included starts at all three of NASCAR's national divisions, he scored 9 ARCA Menard Series wins. 8 of them came at Daytona, with his only other ARCA victory coming at Talladega Superspeedway in 2001. Gerhart has run the full ARCA schedule 3 times during his career, with his best championship finish coming in 2006 when he finished second in the standings behind Frank Kimmel. He continued to go on and say, "I guess we can say I'm stepping out of the seat immediately due to health issues. It's maybe not the way I envisioned it, but at the same time, I feel like I was given a gift with the way it all went down. I travel all over the country, not just with racing, but buying and selling big rigs for work. Had that happen when I was away from home, who knows if I would have decided to drive myself to the nearest hospital and get checked out. I never felt any symptoms. I don't eat fried foods, and I don't eat a lot of red meat. I never had high blood pressure. I just won the genetic lottery, I suppose. With the way it all went down versus the way it could have, I got really, really lucky. unquote. Gerhart still plans to be at the Daytona International Speedway for the ARC opener. He said he's hoping to find someone to drive his familiar number 5 when the season began with the Lucas Oil 200 driven by General Tire. Adding in, quote, "It's awfully late in the going, but we have really great equipment ready to go. All we need is a driver to plug it in and we can go win Daytona. We've done programs like this in the past with drivers like Kyle Krisiloff and Blake Feast. We have a great record of success at Daytona and working with other drivers, so we're hoping even with just a few weeks to go, we can find someone who wants to go race. We'll look at any opportunity from one-race deals to partial season deals to a full season deal. We know we can be an asset to someone who's looking to go and run up front at Daytona. We're going to work hard to keep these race teams going," unquote. So, sad news for Bobby Gerhart. Fortunately, though, it sounds like everything went the right way. Obviously, you never want to experience a heart attack, but was able to get himself the help that he needed and did it in the right way. And while he will not be able to attend racing he won't be able to compete at Daytona. He is going to attend at Daytona next month, but will not be driving until he can fully recover and figure out his health issues. So, of course, also wishing our best to Bobby Gerhart moving forward. Lots of news this past week in the NASCAR world. Kind of what has seemed to happen once we're not talking about holidays. The first being that the ISM Raceway is going through a name change once again. The sponsorship deal, the whole shebang, going to be going in a different direction, and they will now be calling it Phoenix Raceway once again. Their agreement with ISM Connect, they mutually have decided to make a change with it, and with that change will allow them to rename the racetrack to Phoenix Raceway. Phoenix Raceway issued a statement about it on Friday. They said, quote, "Phoenix Raceway and ISM Connect have mutually agreed to restructure their relationship and will continue its naming rights partnership. We look forward to transitioning back to Phoenix Raceway." I'm sorry. I realized I screwed that up. Take 2. Quote, "Phoenix Raceway and ISM Connect have mutually agreed to restructure their relationship and will discontinue its naming rights partnership. We look forward to transitioning back to Phoenix Raceway, a brand that has built a strong affinity across the racing community since our opening in 1964. The repositioning of Phoenix Raceway aligns with NASCAR's integrated sponsorship strategy and supports ISM Connect's efforts to shift their focus from brand awareness to delivering their next-generation technology at NASCAR facilities. We thank ISM Connect for their partnership as we look forward to a historic season for our track, culminating with the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series Championship at Phoenix Raceway." So, not bombshell news, but worth noting that ISM Raceway is now back to Phoenix Raceway. We finally got confirmation from Stewart-Haas Racing earlier today about what they're doing on the Xfinity side of their organization, and we can confirm for you now that Chase Briscoe will in fact be returning to Stewart-Haas Racing for the 2020 NASCAR Xfinity Series season. Not really a lot of specifics on what the deal is, but Chase Briscoe will in fact be coming back. Still appears that at the moment that this is going to be the only ride that Stewart-Haas Racing produces for the Xfinity Series this year, but it will continue. Their relationship with Chase Briscoe will continue, and some of the quotes that some of the thoughts that he had on this news. He was quoted here saying, quote, "This is the first time I'll be able to run back-to-back full seasons with the same team, and I couldn't be happier to do it with Stewart-Haas Racing. Their faith in me means a lot, and I want to reward them in full with more wins and a run for the championship." Unquote. I think he can absolutely do that. With Reddick, Custer, and Bell moving on to the Cup Series, I really do think that Chase Briscoe is going to be one of the top dogs to look at in the Xfinity Series for 2020. Had himself a nice 2019, won a race or two, I believe, along the way, had a shot to win even more than what he did, and a 5th place finish in the championship standings when it was all said and done provided him a very successful year. So it's nice to hear that he's going to be sticking around, nice to hear that he's still with Stewart-Haas Racing, and I absolutely believe that he will be a contender for the championship this upcoming season. Big time surprising news coming out of Penske Racing today. They are going to be doing a crew chief swap for their Cup Series team, all 3 of their Cup Series teams for 2020. All 3 cars will have new crew chiefs. Paul Wolf, who was working with Brad Keselowski, will now work with Joey Logano. Todd Gordon, who was working with Joey Logano, will now work with Ryan Blaney. And Jeremy Bullins, who was working with Ryan Blaney, will now work with Brad Keselowski. A very surprising announcement. I don't think anybody was really expecting that today. But nonetheless, a major crew chief shakeup for Penske Racing. Team Penske is actually what they call themselves now. A massive change for Team Penske on the crew chief side. In a press release, Roger himself had said, quote, "As we do after the completion of each season, we evaluated what we can do to better achieve our goals, and we felt it was time to make these changes to better position us to reach our potential. We are fortunate that we have 3 very strong leaders in Paul, Todd, and Jeremy, who work with experienced and talented crews. Pairing each of these winning teams with different drivers and cars should provide new energy and a fresh approach for the 2020 season," unquote. Me being a Ryan Blaney fan, I actually like Ryan getting teamed up with Todd Gordon, who won a championship a little over a year ago with Joey Logano. Hopefully that change will help all of the teams, but I'm really hoping that will help Ryan improve for this upcoming season. And hopefully, my big thing as a Ryan Blaney fan is I really want to see him win more than one race this season. The last 3 seasons, he has only had 1 win each of those seasons. I would like to see him ramp that up a little bit and have a multi-win year this upcoming year. So, surprising news, but we'll see if it works for Penske Racing. Team Penske, gosh. We will see if it works for Team Penske moving forward. Team Penske was not the only one to come out with crew chief news this Monday afternoon. Richard Petty Motorsports announced today that Jerry Baxter is going to be the crew chief for their number 43 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 that Bubba Wallace will pilot. This is not a new pairing for the 2 of them, as they worked together in the NASCAR Gainer RV and Outdoors Truck Series in 2013 and 14. Bubba was currently working with Derek Stamets. Previously, before Derek, he was working with Drew Blickensderfer, and now he will go with Jerry Baxter. In a team media release, Bubba said, quote, "The 2020 NASCAR Cup Series season is a crucial year for Richard Petty Motorsports. As a team, we have made a ton of progress from my debut in 2018, and we are looking to continue that progress with Jerry calling the shots. He has been a great mentor and an even better friend since we were able to work together in 2013 and 2014. I'm excited to see him get this opportunity in the NASCAR Cup Series and use our past success to take this team to new levels," unquote. Baxter himself said, quote, "During our time together, he trusted what I did as a crew chief and trusted himself more and more, and we got better and better as we went. This is an incredible opportunity, and change is good. Having the confidence of Bubba and everyone at Richard Petty Motorsports means a lot to me. I'm excited about working with Bubba again and the foundation Richard Petty Motorsports has in place with their group of guys," unquote. Jerry Baxter, he spent the last 3 seasons at GMS Racing, most recently in 2019 as Brett Moffitt's crew chief in the Truck Series. Moffitt finished 3rd in the standings this past season with 4 wins, 13 top 5s, and 17 top 10 finishes, as well as 3 poles. Baxter has worked with a number of notable drivers over his 34-year career in NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks, including Ernie Irvan, Boris Said, Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Daniel Suarez, Matt Tifft, Timothy Peters, Martin Truex Jr., Michael Waltrip, David Rudiman, Trevor Bayne, and Robbie Gordon. So, sounds like a great change for all parties involved. Hopefully it will result in some more positive performances for that entire team, and Bubba Wallace can continue to improve and develop as a driver in 2020. We have dates set for the third test for the next-gen car. That will be going on, as previously mentioned, at the Homestead Miami Speedway, but that will be happening on January 15th and 16th. NASCAR confirmed that today. That 2-day test will be next Wednesday and Thursday, which is when the 15th and the 16th are. It is the first test for this race car on a track more than a mile. The previous tests were at Richmond Raceway and Phoenix Raceway, so now we're getting the car up on 1.5 miles to see what will happen there. Austin Dillon was the driver at Richmond. Joey Logano drove it at Phoenix. I'm trying to see here if we know anything about who is going to drive the car this time. Does not appear that they say anything about a driver, but it does say here that NASCAR President Steve Phelps said during Championship Weekend in Miami that the car is expected to be delivered to teams in July of this year. Sources told NBC Sports' Nate Ryan last month that at least 3 companies are being strongly considered to build the chassis for the next-gen car, including Joe Gibbs Racing. So it kind of sounds like there might be a structure put in place next year where, like, you have one organization building the cars, another organization building this part, another organization building that part, things like that. So obviously we'll see how that progresses moving forward, because there's nothing set in stone with that. But the third test for the next-gen race car, set in stone next Wednesday and Thursday, January 15th and 16th at the Homestead Miami Speedway. No word as of yet as to who is going to drive the car in that test. Moving away... Or no, that's not what... That's right. One more piece of news on the NASCAR front before we move away from NASCAR. This was something that I had taken note of earlier last week, but never shared it to our Facebook group. Reports came out this past week that NASCAR is going to... unconfirmed reports, I should say. That NASCAR is going to make the change to the short track aero package for this year. Adam Stern had tweeted out saying this exactly, saying NASCAR is expected to unveil a new short track aero package for the 2020 Cup Series season in the coming weeks, per sources, with the main changes being the spoiler and splitter areas of the car. Teams have agreed to make the changes in a bid to improve on-track action. A lot of people were not extremely happy with how the racing was on the short tracks this year, and you can understand as to why. There was a lot of domination on the short tracks this year. Both Martin Truex Jr. and Brad Keselowski led well over 900 combined laps of the 2 Martinsville races. You didn't really see that much domination in either of the 2 other short track tracks. But there was still a lot of complaints. The racing was definitely a downgrade from last year as it was in 2018. So they're looking to make some changes to better that moving forward in 2020 before this new car comes. So nothing is confirmed as of yet. We will wait for that confirmation, and hopefully once that confirmation is made, we'll have some kind of an idea as to what specific changes are going to be made to the car. Now we will take a quick step away from the NASCAR racing world and chit-chat about some other news that happened this past week in racing away from NASCAR. The first being with Chase Dowling. He has announced a ride for the 2020 NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. He will be doing that with Danny Watts and his number 82 machine. This coming from racedayct.com, and it says, after contending for the 2018 NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour Championship, Chase Dowling found himself cruising in a more low-key fashion in 2019 with part-time rides across the spectrum of modified racing. In 2020, the Roxbury driver will put down the accelerator on busy once again. Dowling will not only be back chasing the most prestigious title in modified racing with the Whelen Modified Tour, but also return to chasing the biggest SK Modified title there is to grab at Stafford Motor Speedway. Dowling has finalized full-time deals for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour and for an SK Modified ride at Stafford Speedway. The 21-year-old Dowling will run full-time on the Whelen Modified Tour for team owner Danny Watts. Dowling started night events on the Whelen Modified Tour in 2019, running 3 of the last 4 events for Watts. He also ran 6 events for Jamie Tomeno. He had a second place run at South Boston Speedway and a 3rd place in July at New Hampshire Motor Speedway running for Tomeno. Dowling told Raceday CT, quote, obviously when you can have a full-time ride, that is what you want for any driver. Last year I went down south and I didn't really know what was going on. Jamie Tomeno gave me everything I wanted to go part-time Whelen Modified Tour racing. We had some really good runs. Obviously it gave me more opportunities to keep my name on the tour and helped me to land something with Watts. Unquote. Watts told Raceday CT, quote, he's just a smart kid and he's a real good driver and he's helpful. He has the drive to want to win, and that's what we've got. We have all the right elements in place now and we're looking forward to a real good season, unquote. Continues on and says, in 66 Whelen Modified Tour starts dating back to 2015, Dowling has 1 victory and 20 top 5 finishes. He finished second to Justin Bonsignore in the standings in 2018, driving for Rob Fuller Motorsports. He won the inaugural Whelen Modified Tour Musket 250 that year at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Dowling will also return full-time to the SK Modified division at Stafford Speedway, where he contended for a title down to the final event of the season in 2017. He will run for team owner Dan Avery with backing from longtime SK Modified division supporters Gene Guy and Bridget Poland. Dowling has 6 career SK Modified victories at Stafford, the last coming on June 1st, 2018. He won the prestigious SK 5K in 2017 at Stafford. On that, he said, quote, it's an awesome opportunity to get back in there, obviously. Michael Sullivan is a huge part of this whole deal, making everything happen. We have great sponsors and supporters on board that makes it so I can't say no when everything is in front of my face. Between Avery and the Pollins being a huge part, and with my other sponsors, there's so much stuff that came together. I'm obviously looking forward to being there full-time again, unquote. So lots of awesome positive news for Chase Dowling for his 2020 season. He's got some full-time rides, one with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, one with Stafford Motor Speedway, and obviously an upgrade as he was only racing part-time last year. So congrats to Chase Dowling on that. Hopefully it will be a fantastic 2020 for him, and he can make the most out of his new full-time rides. Jumping over to the IMSA spectrum, IndyCar champion Ryan Hunter-Reay is going to join Mazda for their IMSA endurance races. This coming from Racer.com says that Mazda Team Jost has signed 2012 IndyCar Series champion and 2014 Indy 500 winner Ryan Hunter-Reay to share the number 55 Mazda RT24P with Jonathan Bomarito and Harry Ticknell at IMSA's long races. Hunter-Reay steps into the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship DPI opportunity after driving for the team on one occasion last season and occupies a Michelin Endurance Cup seat filled by Oliver Pla in 2019. Pla shifts across to the number 77 Mazda RT24P, helmed by Oliver Jarvis and Tristan Nunez. Ryan said, quote, I'm thrilled to be joining Mazda Team Jost for the 2020 IMSA endurance races. I filled in for Harry at Mid-Ohio last year, teaming up with my buddy Jonathan Bomarito, and from the first practice I knew the car really suited my driving style. I thoroughly enjoyed working with the whole team. It's a first-class effort all around. We capped off the weekend with a double podium for Mazda, and I've been eager to get back in the RT24P ever since. I'm excited for what this team is capable of in 2020, and I'm ready to get to work, unquote. With the rest of the lineup remaining the same, barring the exit of the retired Timo Bernard, whose role RHR will fill, new Mazda Motorsports director Nelson Cosgrove sees great possibilities on the horizon. Cosgrove said, quote, it's a great honor to lead this program into its 4th season, and this is the season that I think will be pivotal for Mazda Team Jost. The program's first season was clearly a learning year, while last year the program learned how to become a race winner. 2020 is the year that Mazda Team Joest contends for an IMSA championship. The pieces are already in place with one of the strongest driver lineups in the championship and a car, engine, and technical package that has a lot of potential left in it after winning 3 times last season, unquote. So exciting news there for Ryan Hunter-Reay. Going to see some more sports car endurance racing action in 2020, and we'll do so with Mazda Team Joest, teaming up with Jonathan Bomarito and Harry Tinknell in a Mazda RT24P. So that will obviously start at the Rolex 24 in a few weeks at Daytona. I would assume that would probably also be Sebring, Watkins Glen, and whatever other major endurance races will be happening for IMSA in 2020. Great transition that I didn't even realize that I was planning on making it this way. But IndyCar, back in the headlines again, they will be making a change to their red flag rule for 2020. This also coming from Racer.com, says that the NTT IndyCar Series is expected to revise its rule governing work conducted on cars during a red flag. Racer has learned the series intends to prohibit any efforts to work on a damaged car while the race is stopped, with a rule modification that calls for immediate exclusion if the regulation is violated. Following the 5-car pileup on the first lap at Pocono Raceway that led to an extended red flag period while the circuit underwent repairs, the damaged cars of Andretti Autosports' Alexander Rossi and Ryan Hunter-Reay and Aeroschmidt Peterson Motorsports' James Hinchcliffe were amended by their teams, citing Rule 7.1.4.2.4, which states, quote, unapproved work performed on a car not related to IndyCar approved safety issues while under a red condition will result in a minimum 2-lap penalty, which will be enforced in a manner determined by IndyCar, unquote. Both teams deemed the cost more than acceptable in order to get the 3 cars ready for the return to racing. By getting an early start on repairs, the cars were able to rejoin the action with a greater number of laps left in the race and, in theory, advance farther up the finishing order to capture a bigger points haul. Rossi's car, in particular, was a high priority due to the Californian holding second in the championship with 4 rounds, including Pocono, left to run. Having circumvented the series intent for the rule, all 3 cars were assessed 10-lap penalties by race control. For their efforts, Rossi's number 27 Honda was able to return to the race and finish 18th in the 22-car field, earning 12 points. Hunter-Reay earned 11 points for his run to 19th, and Hinchcliffe took home 10 points for 20th. With the anticipated adjustment to the rule for 2020, teams with an interest in repairing their damaged cars will be forced to wait until the red flag is removed or face expulsion. So it basically sounds like they're going to be adopting the rule that NASCAR already has in place. If you work on your race car under red flag, you are done for the day, period, no questions asked. Works for me. It works in NASCAR, so I will assume that it will work here. Obviously, it wasn't an issue until those teams exploited that rule a little bit last year. Obviously, they were still punished a little bit more severely for doing the exploitation, but now it's going to be straight up. If you work on your car under red, you're done. So we'll see if anybody has to live or die by that rule this upcoming year. The final piece of news that I've got for you guys before we send it over to you guys is in the dirt world. Apparently Scott Bloomquist has scheduled himself a hip replacement surgery. This coming from dirtondirt.com, which is requiring me to log in to view this article. Oh, that's not very helpful. Alright, so let me see if I can find something else on this that I can. Bloomquist hip replacement. Okay. Let's try this. Alright, so we got something here. This doesn't even look like a racing website at all, but it still has information on it. This coming from Chattanoogan.com. It says, the dirt racing website dirtondirt.com is reporting multinational dirt super late model champion Scott Bloomquist of Mooresburg, Tennessee, will undergo hip replacement surgery immediately upon returning home from this weekend's World of Outlaws late model series events in the desert of New Mexico. Bloomquist missed most of the 2019 season after an off-season motorcycle crash occurred last winter, rendering the winningest driver on the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series out of action until September. The 56-year-old has been hobbled, to say the least, as reports of his mobility ran rampant throughout the pits of the new clay oval of Vado Speedway Park. Bloomquist told DirtandDirt.com exclusively that he will doubtfully miss any on-track action with the World of Outlaws Late Model Series, since the next event is slated for mid-February during the lead-up into the Daytona 500 at the neighboring Volusia County Speedway in Florida. It's actually called Volusia Speedway Park, but Bloomquist expects to take Sunday's $15,000 weekend finale race in New Mexico lately and just keep his points up for the long title chase that concludes in November at the Charlotte Dirt Track. So, good to hear that he's not going to be missing any racing due to this surgery. But he will be having hip replacement surgery. Hopefully this will be the last surgery, health-related issues that he will have to endure, and can get to a healthy and full year of racing in 2020. I know that this is not, as that had mentioned, this is not the first time that he has had surgery since this motorcycle accident, but the goal is to finish all this up so he can have 2020 all to himself, and it sounds like that's what's going to happen once he can get himself through this final surgery. So, my friends, that is all that I got for you. We will now turn things over to those of you who are watching live. If you're watching on YouTube, we do this show live on Twitch every week for this exact reason, to get live interaction from the viewers that tune in to the show every Monday night. The live link is listed in the description of the video, so if you're ever available on a Monday night to come join us, you have it, and you should absolutely do so. So, anything that I did not cover on this show yet that you would like to talk about, anything that you did this past weekend, any questions that you have for me, anything like that, the floor is open to you. I'm only seeing one viewer in here, but if that one person that is out there that wants to provide any content, you're more than welcome to do so. And now is your opportunity. As I have said, it's just so great to get back to live racing and have a plethora of things to talk to you guys about. What we did talk to you about tonight is not the only thing that went down this weekend. The Talladega Short Track had their annual Ice Bowl event. Dillon Motor Speedway was racing yesterday. The Red Eye 50/50 happened at New Smyrna Speedway this past weekend. So lots of things starting to ramp up in the racing world, and we kicked off the first weekend in 2020 pretty damn well with a lot of awesome racing things to chit chat about. And it looks like we do have some things. We did just talk about Chase Dowling a little while ago, but Mod Racer Mitch giving us an article, again from RaceDayCT.com, that is discussing the Riverhead Raceway 2020 schedule. I was actually looking at that earlier this week myself because they'd run enduros there, and I needed those dates to mark down on my little master enduro schedule. So RaceDayCT.com discussing that schedule. Holy cow. In this article. So, it says, just hours after the famed ball drop in New York City, Riverhead Raceway owners Eddie and Connie Partridge and Tom Gatz announced an energized 2020 schedule of events to celebrate the 70th anniversary of racing at the famed Quarter Mile facility. The schedule of events announced for 2020 will introduce some new and exciting concepts for both competitors and fans alike, while many mainstay events and attractions will remain part of the Long Island racing fabric. The 2020 NASCAR NASCAR Weekly Racing Series will open up with a 7-for-1 program Saturday evening, May 9th, with the NASCAR Modifieds again headlining the weekly racing action. The May Meltdown Enduro Series opener will precede the NASCAR Lid Lifter on Sunday afternoon, May 3rd. The NASCAR Modifieds will again race as the Division 1 class of the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series at Riverhead Raceway with a regular feature event distance set for 50 laps. Just prior to Christmas, Track Management announced the 4-race Crown Jewel Series for the NASCAR Modifieds, a 4-race series that takes in the 4 extra distance time trial events. In addition to the weekly track NASCAR Championship points, the series will carry its own championship points with the champion of the 4-race Crown Jewel Series to win the Ted Christopher Cup. The first of 4 races will be the $7,000 to win 4th annual Islip 300, Saturday, May 30th, which will be followed by the 70th year celebration 70-lapper July 4th, the Baldwin, Evans, and Jarzenbeck 77 on July 25th, and conclude with the NASCAR 100 August 29th. The winner of the 4-race Crown Jewel Series Championship Chase will be presented the Ted Christopher Track in Victory Lane at the conclusion of the NASCAR 100. I believe that should say trophy. Since the news broke of the Ted Christopher Cup, interest in the 4-race Crown Jewel Series has been high on both sides of the pit wall. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour will again visit Riverhead Raceway twice in 2020, first on Saturday evening, June 20th, and again September 19th, with both events slated for 200 laps and sure to be short track classics. Again, I've complained about this in the past. Race Day CT really needs to proofread their articles because sometimes it gets extremely difficult to read this stuff, and it bugs the shit out of me. So, does it list an author here? I'm pretty sure I looked for this last time. It doesn't, but somebody needs to tell them that they need to proofread their articles because this shit is whacked. Alright, now to pick up where I left off. Okay, another new twist to the 2020 Riverhead Raceway slate announced recently is the Miller Lite Triple Crown Series that encompasses the 3 scheduled time trials. Again, time trials races. The 3 scheduled time trial races for the 6 support classes of the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series. The late models, crate modifieds, figure 8s, blunderbusts, Super Pro trucks, and Onyx Legend race cars will all take part in the Miller Lite Triple Crown Series and run for a championship within a championship like the NASCAR Modifieds. Additionally, the Street Stocks and Mini Stocks also will participate in the Miller Lite Triple Crown Series during their 3-time trial events in 2020. 3 NASCAR Cone Nights had been planned for the new season, starting with the May 23rd program and followed Cone races Saturday, June 27th, and again on August 1st. The Cone race format will be a new addition at Riverhead Raceway and should provide plenty of restart excitement during those 3 nights. And in the article it says, and should provided plenty of restart. Come on, guys, what the fuck? The annual Wall of Fame night will remain part of the Baldwin, Evans, and Jarzenbeck 77 festivities on Saturday evening, July 25th, for the class of 2020 Cromartie Wall of Champions inductees to be announced in the spring. Staying with a nostalgic theme, July 25th will also serve as one of 4 events for the Vintage All-Stars at the track in 2020. The Vintage All-Stars will also appear on May 30th, part of the Islip 300, as well as June 27th and August 15th. 3 Wednesday night events are planned for the 2020 campaign, starting on July 8th and followed by August 5th and August 26th, the Back to School Night Spectacular. The midweek events have become very popular on Long Island and are an excellent way to break up the work week. Family entertainment events will again be plentiful at Riverhead Raceway in 2020, highlighted by no less than 5 school bus events. 3 school bus figure 8 contests are on tap, starting with the first race May 16th and followed by June 13th and Wednesday, July 8th. Later in the summer, 2 school bus demolition derby events will rock the foundation of the 70-year-old track on Saturday, July 18th and again on August 22nd. The monster trucks will be back for 2 breathtaking nights of destruction, Saturday, July 11th, and again on Wednesday, August 26th. 2 fireworks extravaganzas will light up the night sky, starting with the July 4th 70th year celebration program, as well on I Love America night, Saturday, August 8th. 4 bone-jarring and car-destroying demolition derbies are slated for 2020, starting with Saturday night, June 6th, and followed by events on July 4th, August 8th, and September 5th. The 4th and final event will serve as the annual National Stock Demolition Derby. 2 Sunday Enduro programs will bookend at the start and finish of the 2020 race season, as the May Meltdown will open things up on Sunday, May 3rd, while the Enduro Extravaganza will bring the curtain down on 2020 Sunday, September 20th. Aside from their Sunday shows, the Street Stocks and Mini Stocks will race an additional 10 times, either on Saturday or Wednesday nights, while the Truck Enduro, 8-cylinder, and Gut and Go Enduro divisions will race 5 times on select Saturday nights. The first official order of business at Riverhead Raceway will be 2 safety tech inspections Safety Tech Inspection Days, Saturday afternoon, April 11th and April 18th, followed by 2 free to the public practice days on Saturday afternoon, April 25th and May 22nd. Tons of information there, but if you need to look at any of it, you can check it all out at www.riverheadraceway.com. Their full schedule is posted, as I already have seen it for myself. It is full, as plentiful as on the website, so you can check that out if you are looking at it. Well, Sean needs to proofread his articles because they are, highly annoying to read in that form. Another article that Mitch has provided us, Speed51.com, New England Late Model Challenge Cup announced for weekly racers. Weekly late model racers around the Northeast will have the opportunity to race for even more during the 2020 season. The American Canadian Tour has announced the inaugural New England Late Model Challenge Cup, presented by American Racer, to reward the top participating drivers around the region. Throughout 2020, registered late model drivers will earn points towards the NELMCC, presented by American Racer, based on their performance at participating tracks. A separate point fund has been posted with $3,000 guaranteed to the Challenge Cup champion and additional payouts for other top finishers. 4 tracks are slated to participate in the inaugural Challenge Cup: Barrie, Vermont's Thunder Road Speed Bowl, North Woodstock, New Hampshire's White Mountain Motorsports Park, Epping, New Hampshire's Star Speedway, and Massachusetts' Seekonk Speedway. Each of the 4 tracks use ACT late model rules for their weekly racing programs. All weekly late model features at these tracks will be eligible for NELMCC presented by American Racer points. ACT late model tour events at these tracks will not be eligible, even if the event is also awarding weekly championship points. Seekonk Speedway Director of Business Development Ed St. Germain said, quote, Seekonk Speedway is excited to participate in this program and give our late model teams a chance to compete in something bigger without having to travel. The Seekonk late model field has produced some exciting young drivers in the last decade, and we look forward to seeing them take part in the Challenge Cup. Seekonk is committed to the success of the ACT program and the exciting racing it produces, unquote. Let's see. Whoops. A special Challenge Cup point system will award points based on finishing position and field size. Bonus points will also be awarded for wins and positions gained. Tracks will be responsible for reporting the results of each event to the ACT office, which will oversee the program. The 10 best weekly performances for each registered driver across all participating tracks will count towards their NELMCC total. This means weekly Thunder Road late model competitors can earn NELMCC points at White Mountain Motorsports Park events, Seekonk Speedway late model racers can earn points at Star Speedway events, and so on. To be eligible for the New England Late Model Challenge Cup presented by American Racer, drivers must register with the ACT office and pay a $100 entry fee. 100% of all registration fees will be added to the NELMCC point fund. The fund also includes contributions from American Racer and participating tracks, with the final total expected to be well over $10,000. In addition to the $3,000 guarantee for the NLMCC champion, the remainder of the top 10 in the final standings will receive payouts. The champion driver will be honored at their home track's season-ending banquet. So some pretty cool news there for New England late model racers up in the New England area. Another little mini-series coming out for them, and sounds like it'll pay pretty well for them to participate. So 4 tracks participating in it, decent payout. Hopefully they'll get some nice support from it and have success with that new series. All right, let's see here. The final article that Mitch has provided for us, also coming from Speed 51, it is a top 10 short track racers of the past decade article. Just wanted to check this real quick before I started. Now, it doesn't say anything about Oh, it does actually right here. Due to the various divisions that these drivers compete in, our list is not in any particular order. So the way that these names show up does not necessarily indicate anything. But absolutely worth mentioning here. So, Speed 51. Yes, this was from their staff. They have named the top 10 short track racers of the decade, so of the 2010s decade. On that list, you have Brian Clausen, who was a USAC National Midget and Sprint Car standout. Bubba Pollard, a super late model ace that is just insane in super late models. Derek Thorne, who was another super late model driver, West Coast super late model driver. Donnie Schatz, everybody knows who Donnie Schatz is. Absolutely destroyed everybody throughout this decade on the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series. Doug Coby, a NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour driver, who it says did not have a full-time ride with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour at the beginning of the decade, but put together a fantastic decade, to say the least. I was wondering if it was going to show something there, but yes, many wins and some championships along the way on the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour for Doug Coby. Josh Richards, another insane dirt racer. This one being in the super late model world. Multiple championships in the World of Outlaws. Tons of wins. I don't know if he's won a Lucas Oil Championship yet. Actually, it says... Okay, no. It doesn't say anything about that, but it does have his stats. 56 World of Outlaws Late Model Series wins and 25 Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series wins during this decade, so... yeah, you can understand why he's on that list. Lee Pulliam, a hot shoe in the late model stock world, put together himself 4 NASCAR Whelen All-American Series National Championships. 2012, 2013, 2015, and 2017 were the years of those championships. He won the South Boston 200 6 consecutive years. During this decade, won the 2013 Myrtle Beach 400, the 2015 Hampton Heat 200, 2015 Thanksgiving Classic at Southern National Motorsports Park, and the 2018 Short Track U.S. Nationals at Bristol Motor Speedway. A gentleman that I am extremely familiar with, unfortunately, Matt Shepard, Big Block Modified superstar up here in the Northeast on dirt tracks. A ridiculous talent. Won like 4 or 5 straight Super Dirt Car Series championships. Well, no, that's not true. 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, okay. So he won, I think, the last 4 Super Dirt Car Series championships in a row before Matt Williamson beat him last year. Last year, he was also the Short Track Super Series Grand Champion. Won tons of track championships, multiple massive race wins, including Super Dirt Week in 2017, 3 Dirt Car Nationals titles at Volusia Speedway Park, the 2016 ROC Dirt Modified title, just mentioned that, 271 wins in big block and small block modified competition since 2010. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Mike Harrison, who would, according to the article, says that is the Matt Shepard counterpart in the UMP modified ranks. 7-time Dirt Car UMP modified national champion, 6 of them in this decade. 6-time Summit Nationals Modified Champion this decade. Preliminary night victory, Gateway Dirt Nationals, the event that he won in 2018. Wins this decade for Harrison include the 2010 Pepsi Nationals, 4 wins in the Prairie Dirt Classic, 9 wins during Modified Mania, the 2018 Falls Frenzy, and more. And then the last one that they list, of course, is Scott Bloomquist, 56 years of age. In the last 10 years, Bloomquist added 2 championships to his resume in 2010 and 2016 in Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series. He won 77 races during that time on that circuit, including some of the biggest races. And then also throughout the decade, running a bunch of World of Outlaws races. He won 13 World of Outlaws races during the decade, and did win the Dirt Late Model Dream and the World 100 during that time. Some of the other big races that he won, the Dirt Track World Championship, the Gateway Dirt Nationals, the Show Me 100, and the Blue Gray 100. Bloomquist also added victories with other series, including the Ultimate Super Late Model Series, Southern All-Stars, and Spring Nationals. So yeah, that is all 10 of Speed 51's top 10 short track races of the past decade. We'll run them through again. Brian Clausen, Bubba Pollard, Derek Thorne, Donnie Schatz, Doug Colby, Josh Richards, Lee Pulliam, Matt Shepard, Mike Harrison, and Scott Bloomquist. That's a pretty cool article. There's like a lot of stuff in that article about every single driver. Way too much to talk about in its entirety, but still a pretty cool article to check out and read through for sure. So with that, it looks like we will wrap up our reviewer segment for this week. So thank you, Mitch, for being the one sole participant. I do appreciate it. And with that, that's where we're going to wrap things up for the show this week. Thank you guys for tuning on in and checking it all out. If you are not already connected to us on Facebook and YouTube, you have those links down in the chat. For those of you watching on YouTube, that stuff is down in the description of this video. Our Facebook group is what we use to just talk about all things racing, feedback on the show, anything going on in the racing world. A lot of that stuff ends up coming up onto the show that we talk about now. So get yourself in that group. I approve everybody, and chit-chat about racing with all of us throughout the week. And then on YouTube is, of course, where all of these shows go. Post them up on the YouTube channel, whether you missed it live or you missed part of the show, want to rewatch something from the past. Head to our YouTube channel, get yourself subscribed over there, and you will have every single episode of this podcast on there in its entirety. So make sure to check that out. And of course, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, make sure to check us out on the live stream. You can have a direct impact on that live viewer segment. Every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are here to chit-chat about racing. Things will continue to improve and impress as we get further into the year. Not super sure what all that is going on this upcoming weekend. Of course, we have Monster Energy Supercross round number 2 in St. Louis. I know Citrus County Speedway down in Inverness, Florida, is having like a little enduro like preseason type race with a bunch of other stuff. But I think they're doing like an enduro with Demo Derby, stuff like that. And we'll just kind of see what happens news-wise, too. Next week might be another news week. But the show after that, I can promise you we're going to have a ton of racing to talk about because the Chili Bowl, Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals start next Monday night. They will be going on while we are doing our show next week. So we'll have plenty to talk about in 2 weeks about that for sure. And I'm sure that will be the hot topic of that show, no doubt. So, again, I want to thank everybody for tuning on in. Make sure to find some type of racing to enjoy, whether it's online, in person, whatever you got to do. Find it, enjoy it, and come talk to us about it. Put it in the Facebook group, and we'll talk about it here on the show next week. Until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic week, have a fantastic weekend. Find some type of racing to enjoy, and until you do all that, we'll talk to you in a week's time. Peace out, baby. We'll see you for episode 15 next week, January 13th, 2020.